everybody, and a very warm welcome to you all to the Shemza Digital online exhibition launch. For those of you that don't know me already, I'm Aphra Shemza. I'm a multimedia artist and manager of the estate of Anwar Jalal Shemza, who was my grandfather. So a couple of housekeeping notes just before we get started. I found that the active speaker mode is the most comfortable viewing position in Zoom, and this can be selected by using your middle button at the top in the viewer view. This event is being recorded, so we're going to share the recording with all the attendees who've registered, and so if you do speak later on in the Q&A, then you will be recorded, so please do take note of that. So I'm going to begin with a presentation and a film screening, after which there'll be a moderated Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat, and please write them to everybody so everyone can see what questions you have, and then we'll collate them. My lovely assistant Al will collate them and we'll look at them at the end when we have a Q&A. If you need to use a captioning service, you can click the live transcript at the bottom of the screen, so you should be able to use that there. So I'm going to begin by introducing you to my work as an artist. As I said, I'm a multimedia artist and I work with light, abstraction and interactivity. My keen interest in modernism, my Islamic cultural heritage, creating art for all, and advocating for a more sustainable practice are all central themes within my work. I combine traditional sculpting techniques with the latest technology to create my pieces. And I often work with wood, metal, and plastic. As a sculptor, my main medium is light, which I manipulate to create works that change over time. Handmade and bespoke interactive circuits are embedded within my artworks, and this creates works that respond to the viewer or the space around them. I tend to work in series, and each series has a different aesthetic quality and a different theme. I've created both public and private commissions for the Canary Wharf Group, Champagne Louis Roederer and Save the Children, to name a few, and I exhibit regularly with recent highlights including the V&A Digital Design Weekend and Winter Lights Festival in London. I've also participated in notable speaking events such as at Tate Britain, the British Library and the Courtauld Institute. In 2016, I contributed an article to Tate Etc. magazine about the life and work of my grandfather, and I've also received coverage in the Times, Telegraph, London Live, Time Out and Fad magazine. In 2016, I co-founded Art in Flux, an artist-led community interest company that provides a platform for underrepresented artists working at the intersection of art, technology and science. Alongside my colleagues, Maria Almina and Olive Gingrich, I co-curate the yearly programme of talks, exhibitions and events, and you can find out more about us on our website. So alongside my art practice and the work with Art in Flux, I'm also manager of the estate of Anwar Jalal Shemza. And I've been doing this since 2012. So the estate champions the work of my grandfather and continues his legacy through exhibitions, publications, and much more. I've been running the estate since I graduated art school, working alongside our galleries, Javeri Contemporary and Hales. Our main aim is to provide a platform for my grandfather's work. We loan artworks for exhibitions, make the archive available for scholars, take part in international art fairs, publish books, and place Anwar's works in public collections for the world to see. I'm currently cataloguing the estate archive, and we are all here together tonight because of the Shemza Digital project, which is our latest estate project that I am spearheading. So I'm going to give you a little bit more detail about my grandfather's work and an overview about the project, and then I will launch the exhibition and give you a guided tour around the virtual artworks, and then there'll be a chance for us to have Q&A at the end. So my grandfather, Anwar Jalal Shemza, here he is. He died unfortunately before I was born in 1985. But I've always had a real connection with him through his art practice, and I've grown up surrounded by his paintings in our family home. What excited me the most about his work was how he stands apart from the Western artists that I'd studied at art school in my traditional fine art education. And in particular, the way that he fused ideas of Western modernism with Eastern influences and cultural heritage from Pakistan. So Shemza was born in Shimla in Kashmir and studied at the Mayo School of Art, Lahore, which is now the National College of Art. He achieved widespread recognition in Pakistan with his lyrical figurative works that drew inspiration from Mughal and Hindu themes. Anwar came over to London in 1956 to study at the Slade School of Fine Art. And on arrival in the UK, his artistic achievements weren't recognised like they were in Pakistan, and he really struggled to find a place for himself here. His art history lecturer, the well-regarded Ernst Gombrich, who wrote The Story of Art that was published in 1950. And this book, The Story of Art, that you can see on the left here, was a history of art from an entirely Western point of view. In one of his lectures, my grandfather was dismayed to hear Ernst Gombrich dismiss all Islamic art as being purely functional. And he stormed out of the lecture feeling really upset about it. And he went home that evening and he destroyed all the work that he had created so far in the UK. And then he began an exploration of the modernist abstraction of Paul Klee, Mondrian and Kandinsky. And here you can see on the right a seminal early work from the estate collection called Still Life, where you can clearly see this shift from figuration to abstraction, where the cups and fruit elements that would be depicted in this still life arrangement start to become abstract circles and semicircles that Shemza would become really well known for in his art practice. And Anwar decided at this point to go back to basics and combine the simplified formal language of these Western modernists with Islamic architecture and calligraphy to create his own unique style. Or as he put it, one circle, one square, one problem, one life is not enough to solve it. And that is inscribed in Urdu across the center of this painting there, where you can see the writing. And in this piece, in Shemza's, this artwork, 1 to 9 and 1 to 7, we see a kind of new abstract formula detailing the shapes that Shemza is going to use in his abstract compositions as he moves forward in his practice, a combination of squares, circles, and semicircles. So my grandfather, unfortunately, never got to see his work hanging in Tate or really achieve that much recognition in his lifetime. And this was mainly due to the old colonial attitudes that dominated British art and culture at the time, and of course, institutional racism as well. A few years after his death, however, his work was shown in the seminal exhibition that many of you will probably have heard of, called The Other Story at the Hayward Gallery in 1989. And this was conceived and curated by Pakistani artist activist Rashid Araeen. And it also featured the work of Eddie Chambers, Sonia Boyce, Avinash Chandra and Mona Hatoum, to name a few of the artists included. And Shemza's The Wall from 1958 was the front cover image of the catalogue. And I think that that was Rashid's homage to Shemza, having he had only just passed away, a few years earlier. And I think it's interesting to note that this would have been the first time for many of the artists that came over to London in the 50s and 60s post-war from Commonwealth countries, that they would have ever had their artwork showed in a major institution. And it's interesting to note that although this show was a major breakthrough, it also exhibited all these artists together for their otherness rather than necessarily for the content of their work. And some artists, such as Anish Kapoor, who has Indian heritage, actually refuse to be a part of the show because of this. So I think it's always been quite a problematic area. And really, I would say there was a huge lull in progress in art exhibitions and kind of major institutional ideas about these artists that came over until the last 10 years. So in the last decade, there's been a rethinking of the place of migrant artists within British art history. Artists who came over in the 50s and 60s post-war, such as Frank Bowling, Avinash Chandra, Donald Locke, David Madala, and many more, are now being given the recognition that they so surely deserve. We find ourselves in a period of reflection where the old colonial attitudes that once dominated London's art world are now being rewritten, and British art history is being rethought. And this is reflected in key exhibitions that we found at major institutions in the last few years, such as Migrations, Journeys into British Art at Tate in 2012. This exhibition took the same premise as the other story 20 years later by including migrant artists all together in one show. Whereas more recently, the radical post-war Art Between the Pacific and Atlantic show that was held at Haus der Kunst in 2016 and was curated by Okwi and Wezo. It sought to reframe the origins of the post-war global order. And this, as far as to my knowledge, has really been one of the most well-known and groundbreaking shows for exhibiting migrant artists alongside more familiar names. So Shemza's artwork in one section was shared with Francis Bacon's work, and in another section he was in a South American sort of geometric abstraction room with the likes of Lydia Clark and Helio Ortichica, and I think that starts to make a little bit more sense. In 2018, there was this fantastic show at Manchester Art Gallery called Speech Acts. And this show looked at 4 public collections nationally in the UK. And it asked questions about who decides which artists are collected and when their work is exhibited. And it was really fantastic. Here you can see Shemza's work. One of the pieces of his, which is called War Sonnet, has a real op art quality to it because it has really interesting use of colours. And here the piece is shown next to some Bridget Riley's works. And I think this starts to be a really interesting conversation and starts to make more sense. So the exhibition was made in conversation with a project spearheaded by Sonia Boyce, which is called Black Artists and Modernism, and it was curated by Hamad Nassar. It was accompanied by a BBC4 programme, Whoever Heard of a Black Artist, Britain's Hidden Art History, and you can actually watch that show if you're interested. It's live on iPlayer. In 2016, the family were invited to exhibit work at Tate, in Tate Britain in a BP Spotlight room display, and we published the first Shemza monograph that went along with the show too. And this exhibition was a mini retrospective of Shemza's practice and included painting and printmaking alongside archival material as well. We also placed artworks within the Tate collection at this time, and the work, the 4th in from the left, can be seen hanging in Tate Modern at the moment if you go there and take a visit. And so all of this historical context and the work of my grandfather that has all come before really sets the scene then for the latest estate project called shemza.digital. These new advances in the art world are not yet commonplace in the school curriculum. And I wanted to find a way to introduce my grandfather's work to the public and ask them to become actively involved in art making as a way to do this. I believe that now more than ever in our increasingly polarised society, it's really important that we champion rich and diverse voices within British art history. With Shemza.digital, we wanted to create a project that could educate for social change around these issues, making a step towards a more decolonised art world. So I'm now going to pause for a sec and show you a short video about the Shemza Digital project, and then I'll expand out on that. My name is Aphra Shemza. I'm a multimedia artist who works with light, abstraction and interactivity.
My name is Stuart Batchelor, and I'm an interactive digital artist who works the intersection of traditional painting and software art.
My grandfather was the well-known painter Anwar Jalal Shemza. He came over to London in the 50s from Pakistan and studied at the Slade School of Fine Art. In 1962, my grandfather created a painting called 1 to 9 and 1 to 7. On it, inscribed in Urdu, was the quote, "One circle, one square, one problem, one life is not enough to solve it." In Shemza Digital, the artist Stuart Batchelor and myself are continuing the legacy of my grandfather.
Inspired by his writings and aesthetics, we are reimagining them through creative technology.
It's about making art accessible to everybody.
Collaboration is a key part of software art. It can enable anyone to become an artist. We want you to get involved. This piece is about your contribution. We can't wait to see what you'll create.
So I've already spoken a little bit about my art practice, but this is the first time that I've ever combined my contemporary practice and my grandfather's work to create my own new project. And as I mentioned previously, in my practice, I'm trying to find ambitious ways to fuse methodologies from the past with new innovations to imagine what the role of art could be in the future. And until this project, I've always usually worked with traditional sculpting techniques and combined them with the latest technology to create my pieces. But due to the pandemic, as I'm sure is the case for many of us, my life and work has been turned upside down, and I was forced to adapt my practice to this new world that we found ourselves in. I looked for a way that I could take key aspects of my practice, technology and interactivity, and looked at how I could create a project that the public could participate in whilst we were all at home self-isolating. And a couple of years ago, through Art in Flux that I mentioned earlier, I had the pleasure of meeting the artist Stuart Batchelor. And he came to speak at one of our social events at Flux, which are intimate events for artists to speak to each other, get feedback and kind of engage. Since that first meeting, Stuart has exhibited with us and even designed a workshop called Painting with Code that we held at the Royal College of Art and later at the V&A Museum at the Digital Design Weekend. I really admired his work and I was looking for a way to collaborate, and this project was perfect for that. So the knowledge and skills that I didn't necessarily have in computer programming and software, Stuart had those skills, and it was fantastic to collaborate with him. So Stuart is a media artist who works with traditional art and drawing with creative coding to create paintings that are more than just a surface. They're interactive applications, animated and data-driven. At the core of his practice is the idea of what it means to create paintings in the 21st century. That is, paintings that take advantage of modern technologies. Stuart has produced several public-facing workshops as part of Art in Flux, where participants' drawings were transformed into virtual brushes that they then used to create works within a 3D application, bringing physicality and tangibility to the digital painting process. By creating digital drawing software, artists can encode their own rules into the system, inviting users to discover new ways of drawing where real-world physics don't apply and aesthetics are encoded within a digital paintbrush. And in Shemza Digital, we wanted to let users and you explore Anwar's art world in an interactive way, one where you could create your own unique artworks that still sits within his aesthetics and theory. We wanted to allow you to collaborate with Anwar and make something new. Stuart and I created a new interactive software that's called Shemza Digital. And from examining Anwar's prolific body of work, we set out to encode his iconic motifs into generative paint. So we thought we'd start with the basics, a simple circle inside a square. And so the first paint became known as the Squircle, which has basically become an overall mascot for the project, the Squircle. So one of Anwar's most popular and minimal visual elements, and in keeping with how he used it, so we can see on the left one of Anwar's original artworks from 1963, and then on the right we have works made with our Squircle digital paint. The Squircle paint allows users to create large fields of colour that can be overlaid onto one another, creating new shapes with the intersections. For the second paint, we noticed this knitted-like pattern amongst a lot of Anwar's works. And perhaps this motif relates more directly to his ancestry of carpet makers. So these lattices of intersecting semicircles and squares are some of Anwar's most detailed and complex work. So you can see that in the left-hand side with the wall painting there. And in our painting app, users can explore this complexity through the weave paint that overlays the lattice at different scales with each new stroke, creating webs of intricate and beautiful patterns. And our last paint emerged emergently from our experiments. Exploring with the limitations of circles and squares, we discovered the mosaic paint. And this is related to Anwar's wooden relief series. In our digital paint, you can click and drag and create a string of circles or squares that will follow your mouse or finger as you create your painting. So although users can explore these paints individually, the app also allows for any combination of those. So it's up to you to create your vision with the tools that we've given you. And this really results in unanticipated artworks that remix Anwar's ideas and allow for you to collaborate with him. In the first stage of the project, which launched last November at the National Gallery X, we launched the digital painting application, and that was step one. Since then, we've collected over 2,500 digital paintings. We've also run workshops and partnered with the V&A Museum, Bournemouth University, and the Festival of Curiosity, to name but a few. And we're still very much collecting paintings, so if you haven't made one yet, you'll be able to do so as part of the online exhibition. And it's always been my aim and the aim of the project to take this project out of being purely digital and bring it back into the physical realm. So our aim has always been that we would turn these digital paintings into a physical installation. And that's what we've been designing in stage 2 of the project. And I'm really delighted to share that with you this evening. So I'm now going to air the second stage Shemza Digital documentary that hasn't ever been shown yet. And this film is hot off the press. It was finished last night. Hats off to my wonderful videographer, Matthew Kaltenborn. So I do hope that you enjoy this. So after I show this film, I will then give you a guided tour of the virtual exhibition, and we'll drop the link in the chat so you can explore it, and then we'll be doing Q&As. So I'll just take a little rest from speaking for a few moments whilst you watch this documentary. Thanks so much.
Shemza Digital is a collaborative project between the artist Stuart Batchelor and myself. It's based on the work of my grandfather, the well-known British-Pakistani painter Anwar Jalal Shemza. We launched in November at the National Gallery X. Stuart and I created a digital painting application where the public could create their own digital paintings in the style of my grandfather's work. The idea was to highlight the importance of migrant artists in British art history, using my cultural heritage and my grandfather's work as a starting point. Since we launched, we've had over 2,500 digital painting submissions, and it's been amazing to see how the public have responded to the project. The first part of the project was funded by the Arts Council England, and since then, we've been holding many workshops all across the country for partners such as the V&A, the National Centre of Computer Animation, and Bournemouth University. We've shared the project with children and adults alike, and it's been amazing to collect all of their drawings into our digital archive. In February, we held a competition and had over 700 submissions from the public. Out of those 700, we chose 9 lucky winners to have their artworks turned into a collaborative piece. Shemza Digital #1 was the most popular. and it was exhibited as part of the Art in Flux Reclaimed exhibition held in collaboration with the National Gallery X. This was an amazing opportunity for the public to have their artworks exhibited alongside some of the most radical media artists working today. The Shemza Digital project comes in 3 parts. In the first part, we launched the digital painting application and began to collect the public's digital paintings. These paintings are then stored in our online archive, and we always intended to use these paintings to create a collaborative installation in the future. In the second part of the project, I needed to design how we were going to turn the digital paintings into an immersive installation. And I could have done that on my own, but I decided that as we were in the spirit of co-creation and collaborating with the public, that it made better sense for me to collaborate with them in order to create and design that immersive installation in the future. I ran 6 new co-creation workshops where I worked with different communities across the country, working with young people, children and adults alike to create these designs for our immersive installation. The new installation software allowed participants to draw on the walls, floors and ceiling of the space and imagine how we could create light sculptures that would fill the floor space too. I had a really fantastic time working with the public in these workshops, and what came out of them was really inspiring. I took the designs from all the participants and looked at how I could actually turn these ideas into physical realities. We always wanted the installation to combine all the participants' digital paintings into one collaborative piece. And we decided to do this by creating an immersive projection that would completely fill 3 walls of a gallery space. This part of the installation shows the digital paintings that we have added to our online archive. We'll also have a QR code near the installation which the viewer can scan and add their paintings to the archive. The projection will display this in real time. My main practice as an artist is creating interactive light sculptures, and I was really excited to see some of these ideas came out in the co-creation workshops. In the second part of the installation, I've designed 2 interactive light sculptures that have literally morphed out of the walls of the installation and become physical again. The 2 light sculptures use elements from the Shemza Digital painting application and also ideas from my grandfather's art practice. We've taken elements from the weave paint to create this sculpture, and it also relates to Anwar's City Wall series. I also thought it would be a good idea to show some of my grandfather's artworks in the installation as well to give it more context. I've decided to launch a virtual exhibition, and in this way I can invite potential partners to view the exhibition that could be turned physical next year. The final part of this project will be to find a number of national and potentially international touring partners that would like to tour this installation physically in 2022 onwards. I'm already in conversation with a number of venues and galleries who might like to partake, but do get in touch if you have any ideas.
Great, I hope that you enjoyed that, hot off the press. I'm feeling very happy about having launched the project this evening. So I am now ready to talk you through the Shemza Digital online exhibition that is launching tonight. And I'm going to talk you through the show, and then we'll drop a link in the chat so that you can go away and explore in the virtual space. And as you can see, the Shemza Digital exhibition is a culmination of the last year's work that has gone into the Shemza Digital project. So the collection of the public's digital paintings, the workshops with many, many partners, the co-creation workshops with communities across the country, and the creation of new work have all led us to get here. And we're really, really lucky as well to have been sponsored and supported by the Arts Council England throughout this whole process. I've also had the pleasure of working alongside an incredible team who I'd like to thank. So my main artistic collaborator, Stuart Batchelor, my program and interaction designer, Peter Todd, my 3D designer, Anna Sycheva, my videographer, Matthew Cowtonborn, consultant producer, Matty Pye, producer for the first stage of the project, Dean Attiger, and last but not least, my family, of course, the estate of Anwar Jalal Shemza and our galleries, Hales and Javeri Contemporary. So the the reason, as I think you saw in the film as well, to create an online exhibition was basically so that I could sketch out an idea and launch an online exhibition that would showcase how a physical exhibition could work, so that we could tour it with partners in 2022. So this has informed the design of the exhibition. So it really does adhere to real world aesthetics and does adhere to a gallery wall and space, you know, so that's how we've kind of worked on it. So I'm going to take you on a guided tour of the exhibition, but I decided not to try and max out my computer by actually walking you through the virtual space whilst I have my video on and I'm sharing my screen, etc. on Zoom. So I'm going to do that by sharing a number of little moving image GIFs and give you a little tour, and then you'll be able to explore it in the virtual space properly. So in the first part of the exhibition, of course, you're going to see the very seminal and most important artwork 1 to 9 and 1 to 7. And this is the central artwork that this project is based upon. And we've already touched upon this. So we're basically, so myself and the public are continuing Shemza's formal and exploration of the circle and square in our own lifetimes, thinking about the kind of metaphysical concepts that that brings for us. You can also watch the documentary that we've just aired, and this gives you a really good historical grounding and context for the project. In the second stage of the exhibition, you can watch a short documentary about the paints and our inspiration from them. So that's a documentary about Stuart and I discussing the paints and how they came about. And we've already discussed those earlier tonight, so I won't go into them. But I've also selected a number of key works from my grandfather's practice that are related to the paints and also the interactive light arts too, that could be shown alongside the Shemza digital elements. So I'm going to talk you through those now. City at Morning, Noon and Night is from Shemza's City Wall series. And here you can see the artist drawing on inspiration from Islamic architecture to create a city wall. The artist uses his geometric formula to create walls, archways, and minarets. And in this painting, there's also reference to the waxing and waning of the moon and planets in the sky, which relate us to the movement of the heavens, which is a common theme in Islamic art. In Shemza Digital, we've been inspired by the woven motifs in this painting and created our weave paint from them. We've also borrowed the formation of an archway and columns to create our interactive light sculptures, and these are exhibited physically in the piece, in the exhibition. In the square composition series, we see a set of 14 paintings which are all created in this square format. In this series, you can clearly see how Shemza works to combine different Eastern elements with Western modernism. So in square composition 3, we see the elements from Islamic architecture. And in square composition 7, we see Roman alphabet borrowed from Bauhaus's typography. In square composition 12, which is the work that I've used for this exhibition, we see a return to the simple circle and square. And just a side note, just to sort of talk about Shemza's process. So the texture, the red texture, marble texture in the back of the painting that we can see was created by Shemza applying different layers of paint and then using newsprint to draw out a wet coat by walking over the painting with his flip-flops. So it's really interesting to start thinking about that embodied quality and returning from the 2 dimensions into 3 dimensions again and into our bodies. In Shemza Digital, we've been really inspired by this painting to create the squircle paint, and that paint uses large blocks of colour. In 1961, Shemza relocated to Stafford in the West Midlands with his wife Mary Shemza and their daughter Tasbir, and he became an art teacher there. Whilst teaching, he noticed that there had been some wooden tables and chairs thrown into a skip outside the school, and he decided to reuse the materials to create a series of wood reliefs. In Untitled, Shemza cuts different size cylinders from these items and attaches them to a backboard to create this kind of topographical composition. In Shemza Digital's mosaic paint, we borrow this element to create a string of circles and squares across the page when dragged. And of course, we have our Shemza Digital painting application. So that's displayed in this exhibition as a pop-out iframe. But in real life, that would be a QR code that the person can scan with their phone and create their digital painting there. And this piece was created by Stuart and I to create an interactive artwork that is free and accessible to everybody. So using the bespoke software that's hosted online, the viewer can create their own digital painting with our custom paints. And I'm going to show you how to use the digital painting application so that when you have a go yourselves, you know how it works. So I'll just show you a short video and then we will move on to discuss the other artworks in the show.
To start painting, click and drag your mouse or finger in the center of the canvas, and you will start creating shapes with our digital paints. To change your paint, click the icon in the bottom left. This changes between the squircle paint, the weave paint and the mosaic, which all have different aesthetics and different themes based on my grandfather's work. You can change the colour of the palette that you're using by clicking on the colour icon. To undo a shape, click the undo button. Once you've finished creating your painting, you can submit it to our online archive to see it there with all of the other people's work. Click the Finish button and then type in a title for your painting and your name and click Submit. The image that you've created will automatically be saved to your desktop, tablet or mobile device, and you can use it as a digital wallpaper or print it out and have it at home.
So that's just a nice little how-to. So you'll all be able to, hopefully you won't get lost. You'll all be able to create your own digital paintings if you haven't already. So once you've created your painting using the Shemza Digital painting application and press submit, you can then step away from the wall and turn around and look at the projection in the space, and you will see your digital painting come to life in front of you in real-time animation. And this will happen on the walls of the space. So we've decided to display this immersively across 3 walls of the gallery space. And when the installation isn't receiving a new work from you, it will display paintings from the complete archive at random, including all the public's paintings into one collaborative installation. And this immersive installation was designed by students in my co-creation workshops, and I've taken inspiration from them to create this piece. I'm just going to show you a very short video about how this would look in real life. So I haven't created the immersive installation in real life yet, but I have created another artwork called Shemza Digital number 3, and this is already in the real world. It uses real-time projection on a wall or can be displayed on a screen, and this is currently available to exhibit from now on. You can watch, so I'm going to show you a short video so you can see how it works. That just shows you how the interactivity works in real life. It was so exciting for me to see it on a projection on that scale in this Infinity Cove when we shot that. So that was very exciting to see that happen for the first time, and I can't wait to sort of experience this fully immersive projection as well. I'm actually going to be exhibiting this work at Deep, which is the first AI art fair, which is happening between the 13th and the 17th of October. So do come down and check it out. It will be displayed on a screen because it's more of an art fair format, but this will be the first in-person Shemza Digital event that I will be doing exhibiting artwork. So that's very exciting. That's coming up soon. So the final 2 works in the exhibition, so we're rounding off the tour now, are based on my contemporary practice, and they are interactive light sculptures. So I've taken inspiration specifically from my totem series that combines sculptural works with resin and light to create illuminated geometries across the pieces. And also my composition series that uses ultrasonic sensors and a bespoke circuit to measure the viewers, where the viewers are in the space, and respond accordingly. So in Shemza Digital number 5, the viewer is invited to walk through an interactive archway borrowed from Shemza's City Wall series. Here I've turned Shemza's 2D concept, which he based on three-dimensional Islamic architecture in the first place, back into something physical again that can be felt and experienced by the viewer. The ultrasonic sensors of Shemza Digital number 5 measure the visitor's distance from the work, and on approaching the archway, the viewer's presence makes the lights illuminate, enticing the viewer to walk through the artwork. So the interactivity of this will work in a similar way to my diffuser series, where the lights in the work illuminate the closer the viewer gets to the piece. And you can see this demonstrated here by my old housemates in D2, D3 hybrid. The archway motif was designed by students in my co-creation workshops in the last month. And these were based on my grandfather's City Wall series. And I've used this specific artwork created by Zoe as inspiration for the starting point of creating that design. And we have quite a similar piece that I've also designed here, Shemza Digital number 6. And I did want to share with you that I've designed probably about 5 or 6 different sculptures that are all based on different paints and different series of my grandfather's work. But I really felt that these were the strongest, and so that's what I've decided to present today. So we're moving forward with these 2 concepts. And depending on the scale of your space, you know, we could include more or less sculptural works. This time I've designed a column that interacts with the viewer as they approach it. And in real life, this piece will change colours depending on the different size that the viewer approaches it. So the viewer's physical interactivity turns them into active, connective participants. And this not only further develops the work, but it really creates it. The closer they get, the more they see. And Shemza Digital number 6 embraces notions of performativity, dialogue, and exchange. And the interactivity for this will work similarly to Composition X, my very first interactive sculpture that I created in 2015. So you can see here again, depending on the different sides that are covered, then the artwork will change different colours. And the column motif was also inspired by students in my co-creation workshop. So this is one of their designs, and I've taken this as inspiration to create this artwork. And we've already collaborated with so many partners on this journey so far to exhibit our digital painting application and virtual artworks, to hold talks and do workshops with young and old people alike. And we're now looking for future partners who would like to host Shemza Digital physically next year. Our aim is to tour the exhibition around the country and invite members of the public to create digital paintings and learn about Anwar's work and the importance of migrant artists within British art history. Our exhibition is participatory, engaging, and educational, and so it really suits a huge variety of different ages and audience types. I'm already in conversation with many different potential partners, and I'd love to hear from you if you'd like to host us. The exhibition can be exhibited as a whole with the digital aspects and Anwar Shemza's paintings if your venue has appropriate conservation standards, or the digital parts of the project can be exhibited alongside a documentary that explains the historical significance of the work and shows Anwar's work digitally instead. And this might be more suitable for larger festivals and events where there's mass public engagement. The immersive projection artwork can be scaled up and down depending on the gallery size that is available. And we'd, of course, always suggest that an educational programme should go alongside the Shemza Digital exhibition. We have an extensive range of online and offline workshops relating to Islamic digital art, Anwar's work, post-war artists in Britain, and decolonising of the art world. And we'd really love to hear from you about running these as well. Also, if you're exhibiting Shemza's paintings at your institution or museum, then we could always run a Shemza Digital workshop to go alongside that as educational programme to enliven and enrich the programme. So, goodness me, that's enough from me, I think. Thank you so much for listening. We're now going to drop the exhibition link into the chat. So do have a look and explore if you haven't done so already. And I'll now be here to take any questions that you might have in the last kind of half hour of the event. So please feel free. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and come back so I can have a look at the chat and see if you have any questions for me. Details basically. So the Shemza Digital project, you can find us, obviously you've got all the links, but we've now got an Instagram account which is at shemza.digital, and I've also got my own personal website and Instagram account, so if you want to follow me on there, feel free, and do stay in touch with the project. We've got a mailing list that you can sign up to on Shemza Digital, which is www.shemza.digital/contact. If you go to that page, you'll be able to sign up to our mailing list, and you'll be able to receive latest updates about the project. So I would like to, I'll stop sharing my screen again and say thank you ever so much, everybody, for coming and for your fantastic support of the project. It's such a delight to share it with you all, and hope to see you at another event coming up. Thank you.